Hi, I'm Ramsey and I'm a podcast producer over at StoryKeep. For most of my career, I've had the pleasure of learning about people's life stories through interviews, documentaries, and podcasts. And when StoryKeep came to me about producing a private podcast here in Atlanta, Georgia, I jumped at the opportunity. What that is basically I've been interviewing a gentleman here and learning about his life story and his legacy. Through various interviews and, just spending time with him, I've been able to learn so much about him. And then I take those interviews and I make those into individual podcasts for his family, friends, and loved ones to be able to listen to and appreciate and to remember the good things about him and learn about things they have never even heard of. And it's through preserving his life story, we're able to preserve his legacy for generations to come. And it even impacts the community when people who don't know the gentleman listen to it. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, for us to go in and do a private podcast for someone that you love or someone that you serve, please reach out to us because we believe everyone has a story to tell.
Welcome to Who We Remember. I'm Jamie Younger, the founder of StoryKeep and your host for this podcast. It is really wonderful to have you here and joining us for the show. This is a place where we have uncommon conversations about things that matter deeply, the people that we love, and the purpose that we give to our own lives and legacies. Our mission at StoryKeep is to capitalize on the power of story for profound good in families of wealth. Since 2010, we've partnered with over 100 families worldwide, creating personal films and private podcasts that celebrate a family's shared narrative. Our work is designed to deepen connections. My conversations on this show center around two questions. The first is, whose life story from your own family would you most want to see documented? And the second is, what are you, as a person and as a professional, hoping to create and leave behind? Today, I'm happy to welcome Tessa Adams to the show. Tessa is the founder and CEO of everle, the first social media platform dedicated to data privacy and mental health. Unlike Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, everle prioritizes member privacy and actively supports the mental health of its users. Under Tessa's leadership, everle has emerged as a groundbreaking solution in the digital landscape. Today, Tessa is speaking about her grandfather, Charles T. Adams. Her grandfather was an FBI agent. I was pretty impressed to learn that her grandfather did in fact actively work on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list and put away several criminals. He worked under Edgar Hoover and had the privilege of meeting several U.S. presidents, including John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. Although Tessa's grandfather was not a very emotional man, he did write Tessa an important note on the occasion of her 29th birthday, which we'll get into in the conversation. Please settle in for this conversation with Tessa Adams. So Tessa, welcome to Who We Remember.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I have to say, when I read the article in Crane Currency that you were highlighted in and learned a little bit about you and some of your background and your work in founding and building everle, which we'll get to, I just really wanted to talk to you. And you are building such an incredible company and living life with seems like a lot of purpose. And so I'm like, what's behind that? What part of her family lineage might contribute to that? So when we spoke earlier, you said that you would love to have documented your grandfather's life story, Charles Adams. So tell us about where he was born, what he was like, and a little bit about what he did in his lifetime.
Sure. Yeah. He was such an interesting guy. So they're from Pennsylvania. He grew up, pretty modest livings. And I would say, ultimately, went to college and all the things, then enlisted in the Army. Actually, he enlisted in the Army, then went to college, as you do, and then ultimately ended up in the FBI, which is very unique and was something that we always thought was very cool growing up. You know, your grandfather's in the FBI, watch out, not knowing really much about anything.
It's just you as you say.
Just cool. Yeah. I mean, they were on the East Coast. We were on the West Coast. My dad ultimately moved to Washington for residency. So that's where we ended up landing. So we didn't get to spend as much time with him and my grandmother as I think we would have liked, because it's difficult traveling with 3 kids across the country, but they did a good job. So yeah, I mean, he had stories from working under J. Edgar Hoover, which, you know, is obviously has his own interesting stories behind that. He met JFK and Roosevelt. My dad actually has a signed picture from JFK shortly before he was assassinated that was gifted to my grandfather for him. And then after he left the FBI, he became a private investigator. I guess fun fact, while he was in the FBI, he did help catch some of the top 10 most wanted. So he had a few enemies, some pretty high profile enemies, actually, which was
what era of his life was this? Was this his main? I guess this was his main career of his life.
This was a pretty large chunk. I think it was something like 20 years. So it was a large chunk, and then he went into private investigation after that. So a lot of the, you know, when we knew him was a lot of the private investigative years, the years that I start to kind of remember him as a figure in my life. So he kind of carried on, you know, white collar crimes and fraud and things like that he would investigate after the fact. And then he did a lot with his community. He did a lot for seniors. He has a senior center named after him in Wilkes-Barre, the Charles T. Adams Senior Center, and really was sort of a, you know, really positive influence on his community, and helped develop a lot of new things for, you know, for seniors there, and left a legacy behind in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And, you know, it's fun going back, and I think I have a few photos from the senior center from when we went back for his funeral. But it's you know, it's great. He did a lot with a long life, and passed at 91.
91, yeah.
Yeah.
So you shared with me that you are both Scorpios.
Yes.
And as much as I know about Scorpios, they are ambitious and brave and dedicated. And do you feel like those are the qualities of Scorpios that you both had? Like, how did you connect with your grandfather as far as like personality wise?
You know, growing up, I didn't know what a Scorpio really was. I mean, even, you know, maybe high school, we were like reading horoscopes, like, what is this? And now I've been in LA for way too long, so I know too much about all of this astrology stuff. So it's funny to think, I was thinking about this actually after we had spoken a bit before, thinking about the impact of like the 2 Scorpios. We shared the same birthday. And it never really dawned on me. There were moments of, you know, light contention or growing up. I would say something just very fiercely like, this is how I stand. And he was the first to call BS. He was the first to be like, you're wrong. That's absolutely not right. And it felt sort of like hardcore at the time. And now I look back and I'm like, yeah, this is Scorpio. This is Scorpio life. Like we are fiery. We are, you know, sort of courageous. We're bold. You know, we're pretty steadfast. We don't trust a lot of people. So a lot of those things I see now in what a Scorpio is in sort of my life, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense for a lot of things that he would do when we were growing up. And a lot of things that he said to me.
Right?
Yeah, including his profession. Yes, being secretive, you know, being able to kind of hold things very close. Like all of those things make a lot of sense now, that I, you know, in my older years wish I had recognized, because that would have been a lot of fun. But really it was more just like, we have the same birthday. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know you have a few great stories about, interactions with him, but I'm
Mhm.
wondering, something you said to me really has been getting me thinking again, and it's a common theme is that, grandchildren don't know a lot about their grandparents, but yet they're still drawn to them and want to know more about them, and that we tend to not know or ask the right questions of our grandparents because we haven't grown up enough yet in our
Mhm.
own development to know what we would like to understand about them until it's too late. And
Yep.
so yeah, it's kind of a zinger in a sense that like
Mhm.
that opportunity sometimes misses us depending on the age difference between yourself and your grandparent.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering now, with this opportunity, thinking about him and his life, if you had the chance to document his life story, what are the things now that you would want to ask him?
Yeah. I think I do think about that a lot. We were I think, exactly 60 years apart, to the day. And, I, because we had the distance, between us, I think that also affected kind of stepping out of the bounds to ask some of these questions at the time. And also, I was a brazen young 20 something. Like, I know everything and nothing about the world. But I look at it and I'm like, I would love to really sit down and deep dive on what was your childhood really like? What was your extended family like? What were your grandparents' names? Where I feel like I've lacked is sort of that like family tree almost of
Mhm.
this, extended heritage. And I've had some conversations with my father about it, and he's filled in some gaps now and things like that. But really getting it from my grandfather's perspective would be so interesting. What led you to make some of the choices that you made throughout your life? And, how do you feel about that? And, what were some of your high moments? What were some of your low moments? Just like getting to know a deeper version of a person. I think that would be so interesting if I were to do a, memoir of his life, to, enhance and fill in the gaps of the story. Of course, we know exciting moments. We have letters and we have things that, he left us behind. He was a member of the Wyoming Golf Club forever. And like, I have his hat, but it's like, I didn't really know that part of him. So tell me more about that. So anyway, yeah, I think there's just ways we could fill in the gaps that would be very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things you talked about is a strong memory is that he met your high school boyfriend. Am I right
Oh
about
yeah.
that?
Yes, yes. Oh
Can you
yeah, I
tell
wrote
me that
that.
was like,
Oh, I did write that. Yeah. Him and my grandmother actually, it was just very funny. It's just not, when I say my family, it was just maybe not as sentimental as other families or whatnot. They met him and I, was excited. I'm like, here's my boyfriend. Great. Meet my grandparents. And they were fine. They were plenty nice, but their response after was basically pulling me aside, being like, you shouldn't have a boyfriend right now. You need to focus on school, go to college, don't get married too early. Like, don't let this tie you down. Get rid of him. And I was like, what? Okay. Not what you're just thinking approval, not approval. And it was just none of the above, to be honest. So they were like, he's a nice guy, but we don't care. Move on.
and what did you feel at that moment when they said that to you?
I started laughing. I mean, of course, I'm going to college. Of course, I wasn't ever somebody who was looking to settle down, get married, do all of those things. So, again, it's not shocking to me. This is my family, and I love them. So, but it was very funny. It was not expected and just so uncommon. Like, I don't know anybody else who had a similar experience
No,
with their grandparents at that age.
your parents who say that, but you generally grandparents don't go out of their way, so that's pretty remarkable.
I
That's
know,
pretty
I
remarkable.
know. But again, leads you to questions, why? Why would you say that? Do you feel like you got married too young? I don't know. Questions that could have been good follow-ups, but I didn't ask in the
Right,
moment.
right. And I was really struck by the the clarity of thinking that your grandfather had when he wrote a card to you for
Yeah.
a birthday.
Yeah.
Tell me about what was in this card and when you got it and what it said.
Yeah, my 29th birthday, I was living on my own in West Hollywood, working for Red Bull, like just, I was doing my thing. And he wrote me a card and I remember getting it and it was fairly jarring at the time, but he said, I would expect you to be married or the CEO of your own company by the time you're 30. Love Papa, because we called him Papa. And now looking back on it, I think it's so funny. Because I know that he saw in me something that was very fiery. He saw a lot of sort of brazenness and courage, and I think he expected a lot of me from that sense. And I think the marriage thing was more of a joke because he knew that I was very independent and was kind of like, I'm not getting married. But anyway, I was so taken aback. I was like pretty upset at the time. I'm like, what is this? Why would anyone say this to me? But yeah, he was a wise man. He was a wise man.
I here I could take it as a vote of confidence.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I do, and I did, and I mean, I definitely do now. But I think, you're 29, you're approaching 30. You have so many emotions around that and about where you are. You're also living in Los Angeles, which is it's a tough city to, really feel good about yourself in. There's a lot of comparison and a lot of things happening, tag in social media, and we don't even need to go down that road. But I think all of those emotions mixed in, and then you get a card like that, and you're like, oh. But it's one of my favorite memories, actually, one of my favorite moments, because, to your point, after really thinking about it in retrospect, I was like, he sees me, and I appreciated that.
Mm, mm. It just strikes me now to ask you about what his relationship was like with your dad, and if he also sort of had those aspirations and expectations, let's call it, of your dad, or if it jumped over and just landed on you.
No, I'm certain that he was my dad was definitely a like high achiever, and my grandfather really did a lot to support that. My dad, he went to Penn, and I think at one time there was a flood, there was a great flood where they were living, and my grandfather was struggling to pay the tuition at Penn and actually wrote a card to the dean of Penn saying, I think this is a testament to who he was, saying, please, he needs to be in school, like he's becoming a doctor, like this is he please help us. And my grandfather would describe it as like he had tears on the letter as he was writing it. My dad actually came home that summer and rewired the entire house because the electrical had gone out because of this flood. Anyway, they took care of my dad, and it was because of that message and that note. And I was like, that's something that would never happen today. But I think that was also a testament of being supportive, but then also the way we grew up, which was appreciating everything that you have, appreciating, the privileges that you have, but also showing up, putting in the work, achieving. I was always an overachiever, continue to be, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But, I think it trickled down throughout the generations. So.
Well, not only your grandfather writing this card as sort of like a prescient message, but you talked a little bit about, yeah, not even going into the sort of the pressures and social media space and living in LA, but it is so relevant to your story and development and choice of what you did end up founding as a company, which is Everly, a
Mhm.
social media platform that puts mental health as its central focus, I would say. Talk to us about what Everly is and how that is kind of an outgrowth from, your own struggles and ambitions and hopes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it all really ties together. I think you can only be you could only be in a pressure cooker for so long and be looking to achieve and put this much pressure on yourself as a person to be the best at whatever, you can, until things come to a head. So I definitely in high school, dealt with some struggles internally, didn't really talk about it. A lot of people wouldn't even know that it was there, just from constantly feeling the need to be perfect and to show up as a perfect person. And then, cut to later in life, going through a career sort of transition and really hitting a wall with being in places that are unfulfilling, being in places just because they look good on paper, or they seem like you're doing big things. Now tuck in social media into the equation. We didn't have social media in high school. We had social media in college. Tuck social media into the equation, and it was just like a full breakdown, just a full like implosion of comparison, of you're not good enough, of you're not doing enough. And all of those things culminated and eventually led to sort of a mental break in a lot of ways. And by that, I mean like crying in my closet with two of my closest girlfriends who had no idea that I was feeling that at all, because I'm very good at hiding things. To then realizing that social media was a huge culprit of this, even though we already kind of knew, and searching for spaces where you could find community and you could find a safe space and you could have real conversations without being trapped and commoditized or, told that you're bad, and that didn't exist. So that was the day that I was like, well, you know what? I might as well try to make one myself. And that was about 2.5 years ago. And now we're on this journey. And I'm like, I'm not really qualified to do this, but somebody needs to do this that isn't the same 3 men who are controlling all of our data. And obviously the world has taken a huge shift since then. But I think all of these aspects of my life sort of culminated into this one moment. But now I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. And so it all made sense once I embarked on this journey, which has not been easy at all. But I definitely know it's in my core, like the right path and the right mission.
I just had a great moment earlier today. I was listening to an interview with, and I'm going to butcher his last name, but he was a huge chess champion, Josh Watson. Anyone who's listening who knows him will be like, oh, that's not how you say his last name. But he was an incredible chess champion worldwide, and then he went on to become a world champion in martial arts. Yeah. And he was talking about how interlinked our biggest moment in failure or cracking is to the unlocking of the next thing that is sort of our greatest moment, putting those in air quotes, but that those things are deeply related. And so when I listen to you talk about being in the closet with your 2 girlfriends and having this mental break, that seems intricately tied to now what is your current life purpose. It's such a perfect example of that. So tell me what you are hoping to create with the platform Everle, which is the app, which is like a social media app space, right? We still people get a visual, like, and understand what it is.
It is definitely it's a social networking space in a way, but it's really sort of the antithesis of what modern day social media has become. So we've removed like counting, commenting, influencing, trolling, number chasing. It's really just real people having real, genuine, and authentic connections again. And stripping away all of this, like all of the addictive practices and everything that's sort of driven us crazy. So yeah, we say social media, but really we are in this blank space and we're reimagining the way that people connect online, and bringing it back to human to human and person to person, and leading with empathy and leading with community and support. And that's really been our vision in building this, is that you connect with what matters most, whether that be friends or family again, away from all the noise of the mainstream media. in a fully data private enclosed environment. End-to-end encryption, data encrypted at rest, all of the things that we should expect, democratizing data privacy, where you can feel safe to have a real conversation again. Somebody said to me the other day that it's as close to human connection as they've ever felt online, as close to real in-person human connection as they've ever felt online. And that was like an aha moment, because it was like, this is exactly what we've been trying to create. So if that's the way they're feeling, then it's like we're on the right path, because that's what people need more than ever. People need to feel seen and heard and in a safe way. So
how does that experience get created within the app?
So it starts with the data privacy piece. We're also subscription based, so there's no free version, which fully protects your privacy, but also keeps out a lot of the sort of extra voices that, exist in other spaces. Everybody gets one account. You are only connected to people you choose to be connected with. Otherwise, you're instantly private. You can go fully unsearchable and incognito on the platform and just connect with friends and family. You have gather groups on the platform, and those are either public or fully private groups of people that connect with full encryption around any topic. It could be something lighthearted and it could be something serious. We have topics that range from all sorts of things. And people really get to experience building relationships, finding new friendships, or just connecting with their friends again. You go on social media now, how often do you actually see what people you care about are doing? You have to scroll and scroll and scroll, which is what they want. And so you feel so bad about the state of life that you're like, I still don't know what my best friend in Seattle is doing right now, but wow, I know more things than I ever wanted to know about people's cats. Like that's the opposite of what we've created.
You're going to advertise too, right? I mean,
yes.
through the whole thing, right?
Yeah. And no advertising, no content pushing, fully secure environment. And to be quite frank now, that's away from the main owners of all of our social platforms. We're sort of the, for the people, by the people. Our community has really helped us build this, where it's like, we need to have a place to go that's not owned by these major players.
It's a really, really interesting enterprise in the sense that at this point, I personally have felt such a tug between, I want to stay on those social media spaces so that I can still keep connection with some people, like true connection through those kind of apps, keeping up with those people who I wouldn't necessarily have a text conversation with, but I'm love to know what's happening and kind of see them flourishing and growing or doing whatever. But like, I hate having to look at all of the other stuff. And not to mention like all of the comparison if you can't keep yourself fully in check all the time.
Nobody can, by the way.
Nobody could be. Yeah, I mean, even if you're very critically minded, it's still, a lift to be able to do that constantly. And so it's like this pull, push, pull all the time of wanting to stay in the space for that reason, but wanting to absolutely get out of the space for the other reasons. And you have created this alternative. What is your ultimate like vision for maybe not necessarily just the app, but like for you and the work that you're doing in the world?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is reminding people that when you align core values with action, you can create positive change. And that taking risks and being sort of courageous is needed now more than ever. And I hope that regardless of, even what happens with the platform, like that people know that and see that, and we can help lift people up and give people voices where they feel like they have no voice. That's so important to us. That's mission critical to what we're doing, because community, and like I said before, just community and empathy and support and care and real humans connecting together again is so essential to help get us through to the next phase. So yes, we have this platform and it's great, but our vision and our mission is a lot bigger than just, hey, we've created this great data private, safe space, mental health focused for people to connect again. We really want to build a better future and create a better world for the next generations.
That is awesome. It's a really awesome pet.
Really easy, super simple, just not.
I have no doubt it is extremely difficult to push forth, and you're up against huge powers. But it because it is so needed, I am so looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
And engaging with it myself and
Appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. And hey, like I think the biggest thing is the community keeps pushing it forward. The community is demanding this in, in the world. And so as long as the community needs it, we'll keep providing and be that for folks. And hopefully we can affect and change enough that it makes a strong ripple effect across not only the social networks, so to speak, but, with authentic human connection. So, we'll see.
Well, I want to it might seem sort of strange because your grandfather was from a different time.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking about Charles here. And if he were still alive, and I'm sure he would be like wise and like hip enough to like know what's going on to some extent with social media. Um, if you could both ask him something and tell him something at this point, I'm giving you two. You get a question and you get like something you get to tell him. What would those two things be? And they could be about your life or it could be about your pursuit right now with Everly.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting because I don't know that he would get social media and he'd probably be like, stop sharing your data with the government. Is what he would say. So I don't know as it pertains to everything that's there. I think he would be very supportive because we are so focused on data privacy and care about the human and not commoditizing. And it would be very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I would probably, what would I ask him? I have so many things I would ask him, but as it pertains to this, I'd probably say something like, did you think this is where I would end up? just to get a response. Or he was pretty funny guy. Like, is this enough? Was this enough for you? Like, I'm stressed.
What I sell the 29-year-old birthday card. Yeah,
Mental breakdown. Like, is this good enough?
Yeah.
And see what he said from that. And tell him, I would just tell him, thank you. Yeah, I think you've built a legacy. You've built a family now. We are a close family, aunts and uncles, and supportive and support each other and building this environment for us to all. I mean, it started with him through, then my dad and through us. And I would just say thank you for creating this family and the generations that will come from it. And, for being you, because we wouldn't be here if he wasn't.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really wish I could have met the guy. I mean, he must have just had like stories galore about America's 10 Most Wanted. And
I know. Crazy.
But what a beautiful gift that he like sent this sort of like unusual birthday card. But I think it makes all the sense in the world that he sent that and he sort of saw you in a certain way and here you are. And I truly wish you all the best and I look forward to seeing what's happening on this totally new platform that we're all longing for.
Thank you. I know I was a little late. I tell him I was a little late, but we're here now.
Yeah.
8 years late, but we're here.
Well, fabulous. Well, Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me share the story.